Hello Wargamers! I'm here with a new video tip. This time I want to cover what materials I use to do my bases and what is the result you can obtain from that materials. If you have seen any of my other videos, you have realized that I'm using Play-Doh sometimes on my bases. Play-Doh is a type of plasticine that is becoming harder when it's in contact with the air. What is very good compared to other plasticines that are not becoming harder. It's also very easy to manipulate and to do any shape, but don't expect to sculpt anything with that. So normally I use Play-Doh with very small layers to cover cracks or to do some texture on the base. Let's see some examples. In that chivalry base, I use Play-Doh to cover the slots that are coming with the base, as well as with that one, that I use Play-Doh to cover the slot. But you can do more than that. If you have seen my bases simulating mud are done with Play-Doh. So you can have very nice textures. You can put like the footprints of the people on the mud. Another material that I like a lot to use is sand. This sand that you see in the picture is collected from beach. I prefer sand collected by myself because then I have different sizes of the sand grain, and I think it's giving much better and more realistic texture when you apply this on the bases. Here you see that this sand is coming from the beach. You also can see some of the clams that are coming from the with the sand. I like to have different types of sand and different grind sizes to be able to play with. So here you see another bag with a different sand size. And here you can see one example of how I apply the sand. You can see that there are some very small grains and much bigger grains. One thing I have to say, I never leave any of these materials on the natural color. I'll always paint on top of them. And I try to prime them. I think this is helping also to fix the sand or any other element on the base. You can see here how the same sand can be used for city-fight bases. So if you paint on top of the sand, you can use this sand for any type of color you want to apply. Another element I like to use on my bases are small stones to simulate rocks or elements like that. And as you can see in that picture, these stones are mainly used for home decoration. So in that case, for example, I bought this big tube full of small stones for, I think, was only 2 to 3 euros. So if you change to dollars, will be about $3 to $4. And you get much more type of stones than in a normal bag for modelism. So I want to encourage you to look out of the modelism stuff, and also on home decoration and another type of stuff you can find very interesting things for the bases. Here you see an example of how I apply the stones on a base. As I explained before, I paint all the elements I put on the base, so I don't care what is the color that these stones are supplied, as I will paint on top of them. Even if the stones are coming in natural color like grays or browns, I think it's better to paint on top of them, because it will match better with the rest of the paint job you are doing on your model. Here another shot of the same base. You see I use different sizes of stones. Okay, this element is very common, so this is just glass, electrostatic glass from Games Workshop. I only have one color because I will paint on top of this. Here you see the end result in one of my bases. So as you can see, I like to use more vibrant green for this glass. Here is another example. This is not paint yet. And here what I want to show is that you don't need to cover all the base with the glass, only do put some flocks. It's also giving very nice result. This is another element that I like a lot to use in my jungle fighting bases. These are natural reeds that I use to simulate bamboo. As you can see in this picture, these reeds are hollow in the middle, so are very good to simulate bamboo on the bases. Another thing that I like to use these natural reeds is that you have the nuts typical from the nature, so this will give more natural and more will be close the shape to the real life bamboo. These reeds were bought in a modeling shop in Spain. I think it's still available in the shops, but I didn't check recently. I like to mix different diameters of this bamboo to give more the sensation of more natural and more messy. If you just use plastic reeds, it will look more artificial and all will have the same diameter. So I recommend, if you can find these natural reeds, are very good. And now I will show you what is the final touch in the base. Here you have another shot of the bamboo, a closer look, so you can see that you have the nuts and you have very different diameters of the same bamboo. You have to be careful when you put these in the bases because they are more brittle than the plastic reeds, but I think it's worth it to play with that. And here you see how it looks like when it's painted. In that case, I like to paint with a very vibrant green to give the sensation of very green and natural bamboo. You also see that there is like this very thin reed with some like leaves or some on the top. This is also coming with the same back of the bamboo. So, and you can observe in that picture that there are quite different diameters of bamboo, and I think it's giving very natural touch. Of course, one of the things that you have to use in your bases are beads. If you are painting for a long time or you're collecting for some time, you will start having a lot of beads that you don't know what to do with them. So one use for them is to decorate the bases. So I try to have my beads classified by type or by type of army or type of beads to help me to search when I want to use some of them in the basis of to do any type of transformation on my miniatures. Here an example how just a helmet from a marine is very nice addition to a base, breaking the uniformity of the color. In my Chaos army I have a lot of Aquilas broken on the bases, representing that they are invading an imperial planet. Here another example of an imperial Aquila that is being smashed on the floor. Another thing that I use, and is very cheap, is the spruce to simulate beams or any type of element that you can complement. For example, in this case, I'm simulating a heavily rusted piece of metal. And in that other, I just want to simulate a small column that has fall down. So this is a piece of a column that has fall down from any building. Here again, I just simulate a rust beam that have been part of a ruins from a building. Texturized plastic cards are also a very good option for your bases. You can cut them in the shape of the bases and just put on top, and this is giving directly the texture you want for your base. You also can combine this with plastic tubes to simulate pipes, for example. This plastic card is very nice to simulate metallic ground. Here you can see how it looks like once it's painted. Sometimes I cover the full base, and other times I put also on top of this texturized base, I also put some stones or other elements to represent that it's a ruined area. As you can see here, I just apply the plastic card on top of the base, and I paint in a way that is exaggerating a little bit the texture. Okay, this element is very nice to simulate metallic fences. So this is a plastic net, and I will use this to simulate the metallic fences that you can find everywhere. Here you see how it looks like before painting and applying. You just have to cut a small element and put this in your base. This also can simulate any type of net or metallic net that you want to put on your base, or even can simulate the cover of a sink. Here you can see an example of a base where I use this plastic net to simulate a metallic fence that can fall down. Here I just want to show an experiment I did some time ago where with small pieces of wood cut it in the right way, you can simulate a wooden floor. Of course, part of the trick is how you paint this piece of carton. Here you have another image of the base. Sometimes I also look in other hobbies. In that case, I take these small tails from the elements that are used to build stone houses or stone buildings. I think this is the only element that I apply to the bases without any type of paint on top. And in the case is because I want to give this sensation of ceramics, and I think was matching quite well with the rest of the base and the miniature. But I also use that to simulate, for example, a broken pavement where these tails or these stones have moved out of the place. And of course, from time to time, I also buy decorative elements from Games Workshop. In that case, I bought these skulls that are very nice touch on the bases, especially if you do Chaos or Dark Elder. Here you can see how a couple of skulls here and there can give a very nice touch on the bases. Another example of how these skulls can look like when you apply on the bases. Here I'm giving a very nice contrast with the gray of the base. Other elements that I bought from Games Workshop are the sets that they sell for decorating bases. These sets include different sizes of stones and different sizes of sands, and also some resin kits that are giving very nice details on the bases. I also bought the barbed wire from Games Workshop. Here you can see close image of the barbed wire that Games Workshop is selling. I think this give a very nice touch on big bases. So I only use barbed wire in big bases like the heavy weapon teams, or maybe if you have a vendor base or something like that. Here I just want to simulate that the heavy weapon team is hiding behind a barbed wire to protect themselves from the enemy. The resin kit from Games Workshop is also interesting. In some cases they cover the full base, and in other cases it's just to put a small touch on the base, on one side of the base. Normally in the base kits they supply two of these small boxes with quite some elements. And here you see one of these elements painted and put on the base of one of my Renegade Guardians. And here is concluding my overview on the different materials or elements I use to decorate my bases. Now what I want to show with you is how I combine all these elements to create some of my bases, and I hope this can inspire you to do your own bases. In this base concretely, I just combine the barbed wire with some stones, and also I use the Play-Doh to give this texture on the base. So normally what I did is I put a little bit of Play-Doh in front, and I use this to fix the wire on the base. Then I apply sand all over the base, and I add these stones, and finally I add these small plastic bits that are cut from a plastic sprue to simulate the bullet caps from the weapon. This picture was shown before. Here I just want to share with you how I combine the stones and a plastic bit from Spruce to simulate a ruined area in a city. You have to consider the painting of the base as part of the painting of the miniature, because from my point of view it's as important as the miniature. A good base is needed for when you want to have a good miniature. In this base for Belial, I just use texturized plastic card to simulate details, and then I add on top of that a couple of decorative elements like the Aquila and the symbol of the Dark Angels. In this base, I want to simulate a city have been ruined by the combats. So first I use textured plastic card to simulate details, and then I use spare parts from the buildings I did for my table to put this extra element. On top of that, then I start applying sand and rocks to simulate the ruins and that the area have been destroyed. And finally, I add some elements, bits that I have from my spare bits of a lemon rust, and I rust that as much as possible. So this is simulating a city combat area. When you are doing flyer bases, you have a lot of free space to inspire. Here is another city combat base where I use also texturized plastic card to do part of the base. In that case, I use the body I have from an old demonette to simulate a demon that has been smashed to the ground by the Dread Knight. I also use some stones, and this element that is at the left, that is representing dragon teeth or any other ruin area, is just a spare part from a resin kit. So it's the sprue from a resin kit that I bought at Forge Wall. So you can see here how this resin sprue is matching very well with all the elements in the bases. So I will recommend you never throw away almost anything. You can almost use anything for your bases with a good painting and just transforming it in the right way. And that's all for that video. I hope you have some inspiration from this video and have it useful for you to find new ways to decorate your bases and have new ideas. Please comment or like if you like it. Thanks for watching and see you again later. Bye.